Hey everyone, and welcome to a special deep dive all about the 2024 Formula One season.
We're going to be looking at some really interesting analysis from soymotor.com.
And we'll also be taking a look at some insights from F1 journalist Raul.
Yeah, so we're going to be going really deep on car development this time.
Yeah, specifically for you guys watching.
It was a crazy year.
Absolutely. So many ups and downs.
Yeah.
I mean, did AstonMartin make like the biggest development blunder of the year?
Definitely.
And what happened with Red Bull mid-season?
Right. What was going on there?
And how did McLaren just nail it with those upgrades?
They really did. It's impressive.
Let's start with Aston Martin. Raul called them the worst team for development this year.
Oof. Yeah, he didn't hold back.
He really didn't. They had such a promising start, though.
They did. They were even challenging Mercedes sometimes, you know?
Wow.
That Imola update was a disaster. It was supposed to be their big step forward.
It made the car basically undrivable.
Yeah, they just kept trying different things, throwing upgrades at it, hoping something would stick.
It was like a Frankenstein car by the end of the season.
It really was. Do you think their limited wind tunnel time was a factor?
I mean, it probably didn't help, but other teams with the same restrictions managed to develop their cars just fine.
That's the thing, right? It's not just about the resources, it's about how you use them.
Exactly. And then to top it all off, they fired Dan Fallows.
Their big hire from Red Bull.
It's a tough lesson. You know, even with the best talent in the world, you need to understand your tools and how to work within those limitations.
Absolutely. That applies to way more than just racing, by the way. Any field, really.
So true. Okay, let's talk about Red Bull. Verstappen started the season on fire.
Winning race after race like it was nothing.
And then after Miami, it was like someone flipped a switch.
He started making mistakes, complaining about the car's handling.
It's the same guy who dominated the previous season. It's weird.
It really is. And remember, Adrian Newey announced he was leaving right before Miami.
You think that could be connected? Maybe a change in development direction?
It's possible. There's also that rumor about a secret agreement with the FIA.
Like the Ferrari engine controversy back in 2019.
Right. Ferrari's engine was dominant, and then suddenly it wasn't. Makes you wonder what really goes on behind the scenes.
It really does. How much control do governing bodies actually have, and are they being transparent?
Good questions. So let's talk about McLaren. Now they were the total opposite of Aston Martin.
The upgrade kings.
They were so strategic about it, they didn't just throw new parts at the car all the time.
Yeah, their upgrades were perfectly timed and impactful.
And get this, every single upgrade package they brought worked.
That's almost unheard of in Formula One.
It is. Usually you have some hits and misses.
Even drivers from other teams were praising them. Carlos Sainz Jr. was openly impressed.
It just goes to show that slow and steady can win the race. Sometimes focusing on quality over quantity is the way to go.
Less is more, right?
Exactly. It's like when you're working on a project and you try to rush it or add too many things at once.
It never ends well.
Nope.
Right.
McLaren is a great example of focusing on quality and execution.
Let's move on to Ferrari now. Their season was a real roller coaster.
Yeah, up and down all over the place.
They had moments of brilliance, but then some really frustrating setbacks too.
They started strong, but that Barcelona upgrade really hurt them. It brought back the porpoising.
Oh no, not the bouncing.
Yeah, it was a big blow to their championship hopes.
But you got to give them credit, they didn't give up.
They kept fighting. They came back with a new floor design in the second half of the season.
And crucially, they figured out their car setup.
Right. In Abu Dhabi, Carlos Sainz Jr. was just a fraction of a second slower per lap than Lando Norris, who won the race.
It makes you think, what if they hadn't messed up with that Barcelona upgrade?
They could have been right up there fighting for the championship.
One mistake can really have a ripple effect throughout the season.
It shows how important it is to understand your car and adapt to changes.
Now let's talk about 2025. Most teams are probably going to focus on continuity with the 2026 regulations coming up.
Makes sense.
But not Ferrari. They announced a completely radical new car.
Less than 1% carryover from their 2024 car. They're even switching from push rod to pull rod front suspension.
Wow, that's a huge change.
It's a massive gamble, especially with limited preseason testing.
It's like they're saying we're going all in, even if it means crashing and burning.
Will it pay off or will it backfire spectacularly? Only time will tell.
Okay, before we get too carried away with Ferrari, let's finish this part with one last interesting thing. Mercedes thinks their 2024 problems were caused by a rear suspension issue.
They said it was causing too much tire wear.
And remember, Aston Martin bought their rear suspension from Mercedes.
And they had tire problems too.
It's like a technical virus that spread.
It is, kind of, but Mercedes seems pretty confident they can solve it.
They're known for their detailed analysis and problem solving, so I'm sure they'll figure it out.
This just shows how even tiny technical details can have a huge impact on performance.
It's all about finding the root cause and then coming up with the right solution.
Exactly. Welcome back to our deep dive. You know, we're really getting into the weeds of the 2024 season.
I love it, all the technical details and strategy stuff.
Me too. So last time we were talking about Mercedes' theory that a rear suspension problem caused their tire issues.
Right, and Aston Martin, using the same rear suspension from Mercedes, had the same problems.
It's like a domino effect, right? But what's fascinating is how Mercedes is tackling the issue.
They're not giving up.
No, they're not. They're analyzing every bit of data, running simulations, looking at every possible solution.
I bet they are. They've hinted at changes to the suspension geometry, even some material tweaks to improve tire life.
They're leaving no stone unturned.
Just like McLaren with their upgrades.
Exactly. Focused quality over quantity, remember.
It seems like Mercedes has that same philosophy when it comes to problem solving.
They do. It's about understanding the problem at its core and coming up with targeted solutions that really work.
It makes sense whether it's a complex engineering issue like the rear suspension or something in everyday life.
Right. Take a step back, analyze the situation, and find the best way forward.
So for 2025, do you think Mercedes will fix those issues and get back to the front?
I think they have a good shot. And then there's Ferrari with their radical new car design.
The big question mark of the season.
Right. Will it be a stroke of genius or a total flop?
Those 3 days of preseason testing are going to be intense for them.
It's like cramming for a final exam after skipping all the classes.
Maybe they'll roll out the car with a marching band to distract everyone.
That would be hilarious. You know, we talked earlier about the FIA and those rumors of a secret deal with Red Bull.
Like the Ferrari engine thing a few years ago.
Right. It always sparks debate about transparency and fairness.
On one hand, you want the FIA to enforce the rules and make sure everything is level.
But those private agreements make it seem like things are happening behind closed doors.
Makes fans suspicious.
It's like we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole other world of politics and negotiations going on.
Which, let's be honest, is part of what makes Formula One so interesting.
Definitely. It's not just about the cars and drivers. It's the drama, the rivalries, the constant fight for power.
It's a human drama played out at 200 miles per hour with millions of dollars on the line.
Exactly. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about some individual driver performances. Lando Norris had an amazing season.
He really did. He totally deserved that championship title.
He was so consistent, so fast, and he really matured as a driver.
Remember his qualifying lap in Monaco? It was pure magic.
And his win in Brazil holding off Verstappen, that was incredible.
Norris has transformed from a talented kid to a serious championship contender.
Absolutely. And Carlos Sainz Jr. had a great year too, even though he didn't win the title.
He was up against a teammate who is considered a prodigy, and he still held his own.
Sainz Jr. was so consistent, and he got the most out of that Ferrari. He was a big reason for their late-season resurgence.
And the veterans like Fernando Alonso still show they've got it.
Even in a car that wasn't that great, Alonso pulled off some amazing drives.
His determination and racecraft are legendary. That overtake on Gasly in Canada was a masterclass.
And his battle with Hamilton in Austria. Two titans of the sport going at it.
It was a reminder that age is just a number when you have that level of talent and competitive fire.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to take a moment to appreciate all the people behind the scenes.
The engineers, the mechanics, the strategists.
They're the unsung heroes of Formula One.
They're the ones who turn ideas into reality and make sure these amazing cars are running at their best.
Without them, none of this would be possible.
So to all the hardworking people in the garages, the factories, and the wind tunnels, we salute you.
You are the true driving force behind this incredible sport.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the 2024 Formula One season.
We've talked about the tech, the strategies, the drivers, the whole shebang.
It's been a wild ride.
It has, and now let's look at some of those key turning points that really shaped the season.
Those moments that made you go, whoa, what just happened?
Exactly, and maybe we can even make some bold predictions for the future.
Okay, let's rewind back to Miami. That felt like a real turning point.
Yeah, it did. Verstappen's dominance started to slip. McLaren emerged as a contender, and those rumors about a secret FIA deal started swirling.
It was like the whole championship picture got shaken up.
The pressure was on for everyone.
And speaking of pressure, how about that Hamilton-Alonso duel in Austria?
Oh man, that was epic. Two legends going head-to-head, neither one giving an inch.
Decades of experience on display, pure skill and determination.
A masterclass in racecraft. You could see every move they made was calculated, precise, aggressive.
It was a battle for the ages, and it reminded us that Formula One is about so much more than just the cars.
It's about the human element, the passion, the rivalries, the pure competition.
And then there was Singapore.
Oh yeah, Singapore. That was one for the history books.
A night race, a street circuit, and then the rain came down.
It was pure chaos.
Red flags, safety cars, a surprise podium finish.
It was a perfect example of how unpredictable Formula One can be.
Anything can happen. Fortunes can change in an instant.
It keeps you on the edge of your seat, that's for sure.
So looking ahead to 2025, what are you thinking? Can Red Bull bounce back with their new car and drivers?
It's possible. They've got the resources and the talent.
Will Mercedes figure out their rear suspension issue and challenge for the championship?
I wouldn't count them out. They're methodical and they don't give up easily.
And then there's Ferrari, the big wild card.
That radical new car design is either going to be a stroke of genius or a total disaster.
It's a big gamble, but maybe that's what they need to shake things up.
Only time will tell, but I think we can all agree that the 2025 season is going to be another exciting chapter in Formula One history.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the 2024 season. We hope you enjoyed it.
Let us know what you think. Head over to the comments and share your thoughts, your favorite moments, your predictions for next year.
And if you like this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends.
We'll see you next time for more Formula One Deep Dives.
This is the Deep Dive signing off.